The modern urban environment presents a continuous, high threat level for small avian species navigating the terrain.
In this specific sector, a female house sparrow engages in a critical foraging mission for her offspring.
Concealed within a ventilation shaft, two hatchlings await the return of the provider with vital caloric resources.
The target descends to the pavement, risking collision with vehicles to secure food for the waiting dependents.
However, the ground is littered with synthetic refuse, creating a hidden minefield for the small foraging creature.
Disaster strikes immediately as a discarded nylon polymer line tightens around the left tarsus of the subject.
Panic induces a rapid flight response, but the tether holds firm, grounding the subject in the danger zone.
Proximity to the active roadway escalates the situation, with heavy transport vehicles passing within inches of impact.
The struggle rapidly depletes the subject's energy reserves, leading to physical exhaustion and severe heat-induced stress.
Hours pass without intervention, reducing the survival probability of both the trapped mother and her starving chicks.
At the nesting site, the biological clock is ticking as dehydration begins to affect the vulnerable hatchlings.
A human subject traversing the sector detects the anomaly and initiates a pause in their transit route.
Visual confirmation reveals the distress of the avian subject, prompting an immediate decision to intervene and assist.
The operator approaches with caution, aware that sudden movements could cause fatal cardiac stress to the bird.
Securing the subject requires a firm yet delicate grip to immobilize the wings without crushing the rib cage. Initial assessment of the injury displays significant constriction, with the ligature embedded deeply into the soft tissue.
The rescuer deploys a specialized cutting tool to surgically remove the binding agent without severing the limb.
Precision is mandatory during the extraction phase, as the margin for error is measured in mere millimeters.
Constriction is successfully released, restoring blood circulation to the lower extremity of the compromised avian subject.
Despite liberation, the subject remains non-responsive, indicating a state of critical shock and severe systemic dehydration.
Relocation to a stabilized environment is necessary to lower the ambient temperature and reduce the stress load.
Hydration protocols are initiated immediately, using small increments of fluid to jumpstart the biological recovery process.
Initial attempts to administer fluids meet with no response, raising concerns about the viability of the subject.
The operator applies moisture directly to the beak commissure, triggering an instinctive swallowing reflex in the bird.
Visual confirmation of deglutition indicates that the subject's internal systems are beginning to reactivate after the trauma.
Cognitive awareness returns slowly, with the subject displaying increased alertness to the surrounding visual and auditory stimuli.
A topical antiseptic is applied to the abrasion site to prevent bacterial infection from the previous entanglement.
Mobility tests confirm that while the limb is tender, no major skeletal fractures have occurred during entrapment.
The priority now shifts to the dependents, whose survival window is closing rapidly with every passing minute.
The rescuer scans the immediate vertical vicinity, attempting to triangulate the location of the subject's nesting site.
Audio cues from a male sparrow near a structural vent suggest the probable location of the brood.
Recognizing the vocalization, the female subject exhibits a sudden surge of adrenaline and attempts to launch.
Restraint is maintained temporarily to ensure the subject has sufficient cardiovascular recovery for sustained vertical flight.
Rapid caloric intake is facilitated by offering solid food, providing the fuel necessary for the return trip. The rapid consumption of the nutrient source confirms that the subject is stabilizing and ready for release.
The operator repositions to an optimal launch point, minimizing the distance the recovering subject must traverse.
With the recovery protocols complete, the containment is released, offering the subject a clear path to freedom. A momentary pause occurs as the subject reorients its spatial awareness and verifies the absence of predators. Propulsion is engaged, and the subject successfully achieves lift, ascending rapidly towards the identified architectural structure.
Target acquisition is confirmed as the female lands at the vent entrance and signals her return.
The male partner arrives on station, engaging in a brief interaction to verify the female's status.
The female immediately proceeds into the cavity to assess the condition of the two vulnerable offspring.
Feeding operations resume instantly, with the mother transferring the recently acquired nutrients to the starving hatchlings.
From the ground level, the human observer confirms the successful reintegration of the subject into the family unit.
The mission objective is complete, and the rescuer withdraws from the operational area to resume transit.
However, the environmental hazards that precipitated this event remain present, posing a persistent threat to local wildlife. Secondary mitigation is performed as the operator retrieves the discarded ligature to prevent future entrapment incidents.
Proper disposal of the synthetic material neutralizes the immediate danger for other foraging species in the sector.
Inside the nest, the caloric needs of the offspring have been met, inducing a state of rest.
The adult female initiates self-maintenance protocols, preening the damaged feathers around the site of the injury.
Over the subsequent 48 hours, the regenerative capabilities of the subject facilitate a rapid physical recovery.
Full operational capacity is restored, allowing the subject to resume high-efficiency hunting of invertebrate prey.
The offspring continue to develop according to standard biological timelines, showing significant increases in mass and plumage.
Preparation for the initial flight test begins as the fledglings strengthen their pectoral muscles through exercise.
The human rescuer returns to the location for a follow-up observation of the targeted wildlife population. Visual contact is established with the juveniles, who have now successfully exited the safety of the cavity.
The adult female continues to provide support, transferring food to the mobile, but still dependent offspring.
Close-range optical zoom reveals the healed tissue on the tarsus, the only evidence of the incident.
The learning curve for flight mechanics is steep, requiring multiple attempts to master stability and landing precision. Parental guidance is critical during this phase to prevent the juveniles from entering ground-level danger zones.
New threats emerge constantly in the urban ecosystem, requiring the subjects to maintain a state of vigilance.
The female detects the predatory signature and emits a specific frequency alarm call to alert the group.
Response protocols are executed immediately, with the juveniles adopting a static camouflage posture to avoid detection.
The evasion strategy proves successful, and the predator disengages to search for more accessible targets elsewhere.
The observer notes the resilience of the species, capable of navigating a complex matrix of survival challenges. Statistical data indicates that less than 40% of urban fledglings survive their first year of life.
However, the intervention of the human subject has statistically altered the trajectory for this specific family unit. The majority of the human population remains oblivious to the microscopic dramas unfolding in their immediate vicinity.
The rescuer departs the sector permanently, his temporary role in the biological narrative now fully concluded.
Juveniles achieve independence, initiating their own foraging cycles to secure energy from the local environment. Discrimination between food and refuse is a learned behavior that determines the long-term viability of the subject.
The adult female returns to a high vantage point, resuming her role as the sentinel for the group.
The reproductive cycle prepares to repeat, as the pair begins construction of a secondary nesting structure.
Resource accumulation is the primary focus, ensuring the new site is fortified against environmental variables and weather.
Meteorological changes introduce new variables, testing the structural integrity of the selected shelter and the bird's endurance. The waterproofing capability of the plumage is essential for thermoregulation during periods of high precipitation and wind. As the atmospheric disturbance clears, the operational tempo of the urban ecosystem returns to its baseline frequency.
The offspring integrate into the larger flock, adding their genetic contribution to the local population pool.
Collective movement provides a defensive advantage, reducing the probability of predation for any single individual member. The maternal bond is severed, as the biological imperative shifts towards the next generation of potential offspring. Despite their ubiquity, sparrow populations globally are facing a statistically significant decline due to habitat loss.
Rapid urbanization removes the vegetation and insect biomass required for the successful rearing of healthy chicks.
The conversion of green space to impermeable concrete surfaces creates nutritional deserts for these avian foragers.
However, human intervention can also be positive, creating artificial resource points to support the struggling population. Supplemental feeding stations increase the survival rate during resource-scarce periods, such as winter or drought.
The subject identifies the new caloric source, utilizing it to maintain her energy balance for reproduction.
This singular rescue event illustrates the profound impact a single human action can have on nature.
Without the tactical intervention performed at the trap site, 3 specific lives would have been terminated.
Instead, the lineage continues, propagating the genetic resilience required to survive in the Anthropocene era.
The psychological benefit extends to the human operator, reinforcing a connection to the biological world outside.
As the sun sets on the urban landscape, the aerial activity diminishes as the subjects seek roosting security.
Energy conservation protocols are activated for the night, preparing the organism for the challenges of tomorrow.
The cycle of risk and survival remains constant in this artificial environment built by human hands. Evidence of their presence is fleeting, often unnoticed by the dominant species occupying the same territory.
Yet, their survival is inextricably linked to the actions, both positive and negative, of the human population.
This documentation serves as a record of one specific successful engagement in the ongoing struggle for existence.
The decision to stop and intervene requires zero cost, but yields a maximum return on biological continuity.
The subject is now free to navigate the sector, carrying the story of its survival into the future.
This concludes the operational report on the rescue and rehabilitation of the avian subject known as Sparrow.
Monitor the environment closely, for the opportunity to assist a vulnerable subject may present itself at any time.